if you give me 1 second, it's going to connect. Got it. So it is going to be on. Connor, if you have a second, if you can jump on my YouTube channel maybe and just see, like, making sure it's signing in right now. So it's going to take a second to hook up and everything, but it's signing in right now, setting up.
It's showing as
especially
scheduled.
There.
We're live now. It looks like we're good to go.
Perfect. So we are. And I see myself on YouTube, which is funny. So I'm going to minimize that screen perfectly. So we're good to go. So hey everyone, my name is Ryan from Mr. Mom Collectibles, and I actually have my buddy Connor here from the Hot Toys Hotline, and we are here with a very special guest. And to say this is something of a dream, I should say, it's unbelievable an experience that we're about to dive into. For those of you who are a fan of the 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, it's a pop culture phenomenon type of movie. I mean, it really set the bar for future Batman movies. And for many people, including myself personally, it's still the best Batman movie, and nothing trumps it. As a lot of you know, Michael Keaton was the main, he was casted as the main person as Batman and Bruce Wayne. But to bring that character to life and to give a different incarnation than what we were used to with Adam West, it took more than one person to do that. Obviously, like I said, Michael Keaton is the standout role, but he definitely wasn't the main role in the movie. It took multiple stuntmen and other various people to actually bring that character to life. And one very important person, once finding out his backstory, one important person that really brought the character to life is the gentleman that you see here below Connor, and is Carl Newman. And Carl, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing extremely well, Ryan. It's a joy to be on this podcast with you and Connor. I'm really looking forward to it.
And thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're over in the UK, we're on the East Coast, so I know there's a time difference there. So coordinating schedules and things like that. I just want to give people a little bit of your backstory, and then I'm going to share this presentation. So obviously for Batman, Michael Keaton was cast as the main role. There's a lot of controversy with that. Jack Nicholson is the Joker. But for Batman himself, we know that there were stunt doubles used for the action sequences and things like that. He couldn't perform all of the stunts. But one thing that was so incredibly interesting, and I'll tell the story a little bit later on of how I discovered you, is you were hired as the movement double, if that's the correct term to use, for Michael Keaton on Batman. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was told by my agent that Michael wasn't very athletic, so that's where my sort of skill set came in.
That's unbelievable. So and I have to tell you, Carl, when I speak to people like in the collectors community, in the pop culture communities, even Connor is a great example. That's why I wanted to bring him on. I was like, I was talking to this guy, Carl, he's a movement double. And he was like, Connor, I know your reaction was like, what was a movement double? Like, what is that? I didn't understand what that was.
Yeah, admittedly, Carl, I didn't know much about you. And then Ryan started talking to me about it. And then he started showing me some of the scenes that you're in. I'm like, holy crap, that's him. Because you were in some pretty memorable stuff in the film. And when Ryan showed it to me, I was very, very excited to do this. And it's funny, it kind of worked out in my favor, Ryan, that the original interview didn't work out, because now I'm here. And I'm very excited to be here, Carl. And I want to reiterate what Ryan said. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. And being a big fan of this film, we appreciate you. But being a fan of this film is so special to be able to talk to you. And it very much means a lot to me. And I know it means a tremendous amount to Ryan. So once again, thank you so much for being here with us today. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to have you, Connor, as well. I always think it's more interesting with more people as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
More
lines of conversation, and that can only be good concepts. But actually, the movement double credits was, I think, really given to me by Chris Kenny, the co-producer on Batman. So that was really nice. I had that tag as well, which summed it up perfectly for me.
That's amazing. So we're going to dive into that kind of stuff. So what I did was just to kind of give people the context. So this live stream is being conducted via Zoom because we had some technical difficulties about 2 weeks ago with a different streaming program. So it is being conducted through Zoom, and I have it live broadcasted to my YouTube channel. So for those that are going to be watching this live, I know 10 a.m. on the East Coast is a little off, so there may not be a lot of viewers live, but this will be a timestamp recording on my channel as a pre-recording. And what we'll do is after the recording, I'm going to dress it up, fill in the description. Carl, you have an Instagram page. I'm going to put your Instagram in there. Connor, I'm going to put all of our details, the references I used for this stream. There's videos and things like that, all the backup I used to create this little presentation. And so for those who are going to be watching this on the replay, all that will be there for you. And obviously on social media, we're going to blast this out on all of our social media links afterwards. But there was people in a lot of the Facebook groups that did want to watch this live. They thought that it was going to be like an audio podcast. I mean, no. It's going to be live. There's going to be visuals, things like that. So there was some engagement. So I'm excited for those that will join us early on. Like I said, it's just accommodating because there's a 5-hour time zone difference. But Carl, I want to jump right into this. And as I said, if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing here, I made the opening slide here, and that photo it's pretty iconic. I chose that photo because, there you are. I mean, people are like, wait, what? I don't understand. So, but I want to jump right into it. And if you could just give us your backstory about where you grew up, how'd you get into professional dancing? And then that's going to kind of segue into the biggest question, which my father-in-law wants to know, is how on earth did you actually get cast in Batman? So, Carl, I'll stop talking, and if you would take it away, sir.
Well, my backstory is that I grew up in a very beautiful rural part of England called Leicestershire, which is what they call the heart of England, if you like. Very beautiful. I had all that natural upbringing. I grew up practically on a farm as well, because my late father, who was a builder and plumber, he built the family home just 4 doors away from this farm that I spent a lot of my childhood. And so I was really interested in and still am in nature, world around us. But my late father as well was very much a big influence on me, because he worked out. He was an incredibly strong guy, and he encouraged me to do weights. I loved all the major sports like cricket, football, rugby in the UK. I did athletics. I won the sports prize at school because I did so many different sports. But wow. He encouraged me with all of that physical culture, because I got into people like Arnie and Lou Ferrigno. I watched all of that stuff. And there was another guy I was very interested in, which was Frank Zane, I think. Brilliant bodybuilder. So yeah, wow. I kind of had all these interests, with physical culture, with well-being. I was also playing drums from the age of 11, and I saw a lot of my heroes. I was kind of encouraged to watch the greats like Buddy Rich, Louis Belson, Gene Krupa, but then found all these other players. So it was a really kind of mixed bag that I had, nature, sports, playing the drums. And then I was playing drums for a dancing school, and I happened to be dancing at some social event, and they really liked what I was doing. And I was a big fan of the Jacksons and Michael Jackson, all of those, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, you name it. So dance was also a big thing for me. So I started dancing. This dancing school said, look, you should do more. I went to their school. I started doing modern jazz, some tap. Another guy was there. His sisters were at this school. He said, Carl, you should come to where I go. It's a sort of a classical contemporary ballet school. I thought, that sounds good. And it was run by the council. So it was like a peppercorn subscription to go to this particular institution. And what was so brilliant was that the people there were the most phenomenal teachers. There was a lady from Ex-Royal Ballet. There was a guy from Rambert Ballet. They're 2 massive companies in the UK. And he also danced with the New Zealand Ballet. And I went, and I was just one of a few guys that were there. And I just loved it, because I hadn't really done that before. I'd seen, obviously, ballet. Gene Kelly used ballet as very much the core of his dancing. That's why he's so good, he's so strong. But I started doing it, and I was loving it. And I was performing at the really good theatres in Leicester, where some of the West End shows have sort of started, if you like. And from there, I did a massive youth Youth Festival, which was one of the first festivals in the UK, where all these companies from around the UK just met, performed, did classes together, watched various films or whatever it might be. And then my friends were going off to audition at these colleges, institutions. And I was kind of dragging my heels a little bit, really. And then finally I got my act together. And there was a particular college school that I wanted to go to, which was called Lane Theatre Arts in Epsom, which has produced some amazing kind of talent. And I happened to phone the head, and she said, "Oh, Carl, if you come in tomorrow, you can do a ballet class with the girls." I thought, right, I've got to get my act together. I got on the train and got there, and they accepted me. And that was very much the start, because you do everything at these institutions, all the different forms, genres of dance. I did pas de deux, national, tap, you name it, it was all there. And there was also acting and singing that was part of the curriculum as well. Did 3 years full time there, fantastic. And then it's a case of, as you probably know, you need to get your union card, which is equity in this country. And I went out. The college let me go and do various things to get some weeks on my equity card. And then another friend who also trained there, he said, "Carl, look, there's a great agent called Dancers in London," which we were in Epsom in Surrey, which is not so far away from central London. But we went in and they really liked me when I went into the office, to the guys there, and took me on. And they, as you know, with an agent behind you, they're the ones that are putting you forward for these fantastic opportunities. And I happened to be called about this Batman gig, if you like. And
wow, that's amazing.
Wow, fantastic. So I've been doing some work at various film studios anyway, like Shepperton and Pinewood, but any excuse to get back there again was wonderful. So I went to Pinewood one particular day, met Derek Cracknell, who was the first assistant director, and we chatted about various things. And then I never heard anything again until sort of several weeks later, where they called me back. So that was the next time. And do you want me to talk about that now, or a little bit later?
We're gonna, yeah, you actually, because I don't know if you saw my presentation, so we'll move right into it. So like, yes. I did a lot of social media research, Carl. So I checked out like your Instagram, other links. And as I said, for those watching, I'll put all those resource links in the description of this video afterwards. After we're done, I'll update all the data. So those who are watching, especially on the replay, if you're interested in seeing this, because I can only cram so much into this, there's so much more. But like, for example, yeah, we can go into it, because like I even found like these call sheets. Now the dates there showing, November 10th, 19, looks like 88, looks like November 28th. And you're there listed as you have Jack Nicholson, he was the headliner. So, and he goes down the main cast. And then you see stunt coordinator, and then you see stunts, and then doubles, Carl Newman, double for Batman. So you're listed there on the call sheets.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing, Ryan, because I got a call sheet every day. And, I'm not one of these guys. I think, what was I, 25, 26 when I did this. And I don't know, I've never been a greedy person. I've not been someone that's thought, I have to get everything. It's always after the event. So really, I could have got a call sheet for every day, which would have been a fantastic collection. I was quite happy to have a cherry pick a few, because that one highlights me as being a mime advisor, the one on the right here.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later too.
Yeah, there was crazy things. I mean, I had Michael's coat, because we filmed throughout the winter months in the UK. I know Canada and America can get a lot colder than here, but it was a particularly cold winter, 88, 89. And I had Michael's coat that he wore over his sort of costume, because, wow, he needed an extra layer even with that. And I think, I don't know what happened, whether I gave it to a charity shop or something. And you realize, oh my God, Carl, you should have kept these things. I just, not blasé, but just so humbled and I just never realized, we knew that this film, we had an inkling, obviously, with the cast like it had, that this film would be fantastic. But the level it got to was just something else, wasn't it? And Tim
so I want to ask you, No, absolutely. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had one question for you, then I'll let Connor jump in. So my question for you, Carl, real fast, and then when you got casted as to work on the show, what was your prior knowledge of Batman in the sense of,
Well,
like, obviously the Adam West and stuff, but did you have a lot of background knowledge of the character?
I didn't really know, I have to be honest. I just really had the Adam West reference. That was something that I loved, even though it was camp and kitsch. There's still an escapism there for me, and just things like the Bakelite bat phone, which was under the glass, that kind of really fascinated me. And that there's the glamour there, isn't there? Because Julian Newmar and I was aware of how brilliant Burgess Meredith was as an actor. He was kind of like an English Olivier in a way, or a John Gielgud. But I didn't have a massive reference for it, to be honest with you. So, it was amazing. I mean, when I did go back again, when they called me back and said, we want you to put the suit on, then I could really sort of get myself, because I think once you've got an amazing costume on as well, you can really lose yourself in that. That was one of Laurence Olivier's things, that if you have the costume, then you can really pull everything to life, and that's what helped me tremendously. And then just bringing in, as I say, I think because I was very multifaceted as a performer, I also did a lot of athletics, which you'll notice how I got into the Batmobile. These other elements, if you like, gave me that extra. Yes, dance, it was phenomenal, and I loved all that, but I loved the fact that I had this kind of brain and this other side, flexibility and athleticism, that also came into that character.
Absolutely. Connor, what are your thoughts right now about all this? You're just sitting here digesting it, man.
Yeah, I mean, so Carl, a question came to mind to me. What was it like? You got your casting call. I'm sure you were incredibly excited to get an opportunity like that, but what was it like when reality set in and you're on set with all these incredible actors like Billy D. Williams, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson? Like, what was that moment like for you? You said you're 25, 26 years old. Like, what was the feeling? What was that moment like when you're like, okay, this is real, I'm here, like, I can't believe I'm here? Like, what was that moment like for you?
It was just indescribable, really, because I'm someone, as you probably have gathered from previous interviews and just how I am as a person. I'm very worldly in the way I am, that I love so many different things like architecture and fashion and design and all these different things. So you can imagine going onto Batman, where you've got the best of the best, haven't you, really? You've got Anton First, you've got Tim, you've got Bob Ringwood. It was just everything. And I'd worked on a couple of other movies where I'd done more ballroom dancing. And I remember working on a great film called White Mischief with Michael Radford as the director, and Greta Scacchi, who's absolutely beautiful actress. There was some really amazing actors like Trevor Howard and Charles Dance, John Hurt. But I was always the kind of guy, when I go on to sets and I'm doing jobs, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at the way they light things and the set design. And that's what I did on those movies. But when I came to Batman, it was just something else, because it was, as Anton had said, hell had erupted on the streets and just carried on growing. And those enormous buildings, I was very, very lucky, because the downtime, or the time I was just waiting to do stuff, I'd be with, the Batsuit Wranglers if it was Todd or Day, and when Vin was there on occasion. But I would always be looking at how they did the crowd scenes, how they did the stunt driving, what Tim was doing, if Michael was about, or Jack. So yes, to say it was just the most phenomenal feeling. I'm not just saying it because I was part of that, but I just don't think that will ever be surpassed, because now CGI is used so much in movies, and yes, that is the way it has been going or has gone. But I just love the fact that when you've got the real sets there, you know, all that work that's gone into creating that. I know all the computer work is phenomenal, and those guys and girls, ladies are talented beyond belief. But, you know, when you see these buildings, when you see the skill of the lighting, everything, it just blows your mind. And certainly Batman for me. And I was also very lucky because when I wasn't filming, I'd get taken off to do a photo shoot. And so then there wasn't the pressure on me like in the filming moment, in the zone where, you know, pressure was on to get that take right. I was the same in still shots as well. But I think the thing is, when I went off, I was a bit more relaxed. I got my costume on, and if it was one of the guys, they'd say, right, you know, let's do something on the cathedral steps or whatever. And that was great. And I'd be doing my poses. So I could get the all-round flavor of this movie from, you know, times when I wasn't doing anything and I walked around Pinewood and I happened to see Cubby Broccoli driving in his Rolls, and Timothy Dalton was walking about. Yes, a kid in a candy shop, isn't it, really? Right. when you see all these things, and they're great people as well, people that you've grown up with and admired as well. And I've always been very, very proud of the way things have been done, you know, on these movies.
That's amazing. That's a great question, Connor. So I want to move forward a little bit, and then we're going to get into the actual heart of the movie. I just want to get an idea of the kind of the production standpoint. And I was flipping through these screens, and these are stills. Once again, I found this on YouTube, and this is a little bit out of sequence, but this is actually, it looks like it was a VHS, like a 30-minute documentary, and it is on YouTube. I will put the link in the description for anyone who wants to see it. But it's called Batman: The Making of a Hero. And from my understanding, like I said, you can correct me, this is research. This is actually you. It's like maybe a 8-second clip. I didn't want to like put it online just in case of copyright and stuff like that. But I took a lot of stills. But there's a scene when they're talking about costume production, and this is you putting on the suit. It's like a 5-second clip, but I slowed it down where I took screenshots, and it's like putting on the suit, putting on the boots, going through the cape, you clicking the cape together, and then it looks like putting the actual emblem on. So like, you know, when we jump into the movie, which would be the next part, a couple of questions. Like, did you, I don't know the size build. I know Michael Keaton is like, you know, he's a shorter individual, but did you have to like put on someone else's suit where it's like, hey, listen, we have these suits made, everyone's kind of one size fits all, and they just happen to get you in the right suit? Did you have one made for you? Or like, what was that whole idea and that process of like putting on this Batman suit? It's an undescribable experience, I'm sure, but
oh my word, I mean, that would have been a luxury, and I believe that's what happened in Returns, that they did actually have bespoke suits for the guys. But on the 89, contrary to what anyone else has said, unless I'm going mad, it was just very much the generic suit that we all wore. You know, I mean, I was quite muscular, you know, in a dancer's build. The height with Michael worked as it did with Sean McCabe, and David Lee, I think, is a bit shorter. But you know, it was a generic suit that we all wore. And yes, I mean, people have said to me, you can imagine the amount of times I've been asked, what was it like? And it was very cumbersome. It was very hot and restrictive. But I think as a dancer, you know, you're so used to working in different costumes that it's all part and parcel of your makeup, if you like, your DNA. You do this thing without ever thinking about it. You know, you dance on tables, you dance in very precarious places. So putting on a costume to me was never anything. I was very, very disciplined anyway with all of that, learning to breathe, not to sort of panic or get wound up by it, by putting this on. So I just put it on. I did feel invincible, I have to say, when I put that suit on. It was just so exciting because all of those components, it was like a ritual each time I went into the costume department, where I started off with my silks, if you like, my silk shorts and top, and then that allowed for everything else to come on a lot easier. And of course, you had the help to get the items on. But no, to to put that suit on, and then when you're actually on set, you can imagine it was just mind-blowing how you felt. You just felt as though you could fall off something and just nothing would happen, you know.
Right, you're invincible.
Bounce off the floor.
Right.
It was incredible.
That's amazing. So what we're gonna do, yeah, there's the click of the emblem. So what we're gonna do is get into, these are scenes that I went through the movie, and I gotta say, man, Carl, you got me more hyped up for Batman. I think when we were trying to do this 2 weeks ago, I think I watched Batman like 4 or 6 times. I remember telling Connor I watched Batman like 4 to 5 times in 1 week because I was just going back and watching stuff. And like I said, I know that there was scenes in certain interviews you talked about that are kind of hard, where it's like, in terms of, because they did do, and I think you and I talked about it, they did do a pretty good job of merging multiple actors together, where it's kind of like, whoa, see that one or that one. So I really, I'm only honing in on, I think the scenes we can guarantee, like, yeah, that was you, like that was you. And if there's a couple missing, by all means, you can definitely call me out. But from my understanding and the research I did, there was obviously deleted scenes that were either filmed, partially filmed, or storyboarded for the movie. And from the information I gathered, this is a still from a deleted scene that is you, but this was the very opening of the rooftop sequence. I know from the movie, the family gets mugged, and then Batman makes that first appearance where he's hovering down, which we'll get to. But from my understanding, there was actually an alternate opening that was supposed to be filmed and in the description, it was about the description of gargoyles, and then there's a figure, and then the figure moves and walks away. So if I'm understanding, like, was this a scene that was actually filmed, or was this something they more or less put you there to like do some photography and like plan it out? Like, was this actually ever put together as an official opening?
Yeah, it actually was, because I remember it vividly. Tim had asked me about this, mentioned this particular scene, this opening, and the fact that because I was with the gargoyles, that the premise was that as the camera would pan up the top of the building and come around, that you would see the gargoyle, and you'd see the gargoyle-esque shape, silhouette of Batman there, and you were kind of intrigued and not 100% sure. And then because there was the movements there, then that set that interest in more. And what I particularly, it was actually filmed, I can assure you that, because I know Annie from the wardrobe had said that she'd seen it in the dailies and it looked phenomenal, fantastic. I mean, I'm such a perfectionist, Ryan, and kind of that, when I, this looks like, oh, I've just got there, and that was like 5 minutes. I was probably in that position for well over an hour.
Wow.
In filming, everything has to be so perfect. The lighting, no hair in the gates or whatever. Everything's got to be just spot on. And to make that shape in full costume regalia is very awkward anyway, because there's a sense of the gravitational pull or something wanting to cramp you, because the cowl is pulled down tight and glued onto the cape. So you can imagine you've got all that tension, that pressure pulling down. And I needed to create this very sort of elegant silhouette with the shape. And so I held that position for a very, very long time, and it was agony on the knees, on the legs. But again, you go through the pain barrier for your art, you suffer for your art, and dancers do. And I just did these very minimal movements, with a slight twist or a turn of the head, the shoulder. And it's on film, you see anything like that's just amplified even more, isn't it? And it makes a bigger impact. And so I was very, very proud of that, especially after, it was a shame I couldn't have gone to see these rushes, these dailies, but that's how it was. But from hearing from other people in the world, that had worked on many, many movies, giving me that feedback, it was fantastic. And then when I went to the screening, I thought, oh no, what, they've put the animation in? Because there's so much controversy and talk about this, but I conjecture. But I think really, my honest feeling is it goes against the grain of film of that movie where you put the animation. I think you should keep it the same. And this was lit so beautifully. I don't think it would have given anything away later, you know, because of the final bell tower scene. That's my feeling on it. It just seemed a real shame that it was just so clever. And really, I've said to artists and different people, you know, in many ways, maybe this has influenced other Batmen, you know, and even some of Michael's photographs where he's standing on a gargoyle. You wonder whether I've kind of, you know, no, I don't want to take, you know, get too ahead of myself, but I feel that maybe I've influenced things in other ways as well from some of the photography that I've done. You know, some of the poses, some of these images may have inspired other Batmen and artists and designers. I don't know.
And like you said, it was really unbelievable because now it honestly triggered in Connor. I mean, I don't know if Connor, have you ever seen this deleted scene or this picture? I mean, I wish we would have saw this scene live, but it is a shame that you think about it, because when we see Batman for the first time, it is an actual hand animation drawing of him like looking over the edge and turning and walking back. And yes. Yeah, Carl, you described it perfectly. Like when you see that, and then you could have saw something like this. I mean, this is like this picture alone, even though it's an older photo, it's a gorgeous photo, and it really opens up like it opens up that whole what if kind of thing, like what it could have been if this was the opening of the movie. But
even for the fans and the many, you know, connoisseurs and aficionados, you know, I think they deserve to have this put in, you know, a special sort of edition, director's cut or whatever it might be. You know, it should be there for people to
absolutely
witness. Anyway.
So I'm gonna get into the heart of the scene, and then Connor, I'll jump it over to you to talk, ask a question. I know you got some questions lined up, but the first time that we actually see the most famous shot, one of the most famous shots in the movie, is the lowering sequence of. Now, what I did was I just took some screenshots so you can see like the movements jumping down, that kind of thing. So I mean, that is it's crazy how many people I talk to and they're like, well, what was he doing in the movie? I'm like, well, he's the first person you see in the movie. He's like, what are you talking about? And you know, and I was like, that's being lowered down. They're like, holy crap, that was really. And I was like, and that's you being lowered down, and that's the first time we see Batman. If you're ever watching this movie, I mean, you're technically the first person we see. And it's and just go through the process of like the weight of that costume, and I could kind of tell you're standing there with your arms out with the cape, and then you have to lower them down very gently to kind of be very floetic, so to speak, and try to be, you know, the movements. Like what was that kind of process of that scene? Like, hey, we're gonna hoist you up on a rig and drop you down, and then you have to, you know, use your experience to kind of create this kind of flowing movement, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, I think it's very much a dream again, because I'd never used Kirby wires before. So this was my first experience of using those. And, you know, it's a bit like a Peter Pan moment, really, having the harness and being able to fly in that sense. But yeah, they briefed me beforehand, Tim and the guys, and I had a couple of guys, I think, winching me and lowering me. But yes, I literally put this sort of girdle, this harness around me. But that's where this dance and this athletic training comes in, because, you know, I said to people, because they asked me how many takes it took, and it took quite a few, because you have to get the angle right when you're being flown in. It has to be the right speed as well. And when you're landing, as we know, when we jump from something, you soften through the knees anyway, so that it takes that sort of impact. But I knew all this from ballet training anyway, sort of like the plie, and so that really helped. And it's getting, again, with the coordination of getting the arms, so that then once you've landed, that you can lower the arms very, very slow. And if you'll notice that I was very keen on the deportment, on the alignment, pulling sort of very upright, so that you get that wonderful strength and elegance of Batman, which I think is so important. I've been blown away when people have told me that in the cinemas, you know, that people just went nuts when that happens. You know, it all sort of ricocheted all around the theatre. But wow, that's just amazing. And I know Johnny Karzai, the director of The Oath, that fan film, he absolutely, that's his favorite shot. So I'm really honored by that. But yes, it was a combination of bringing all those elements of training, the elegance, the plie in ballet and strength. And yeah, it's a lot of concentration as well, because you're wanting it to be so perfect, as we know. And the guys that were the crooks there, they were such lovely guys to work with. I spent a lot of time with them as well. Lovely people. But yeah, it was fantastic how it was lit, and that silhouette, getting a chance to really be the first Batman opening.
That's unbelievable. And then finally, the most famous pose too, when you sneak up on the two crooks and you have your arms out, like, and people, like I said, I mean, that's just an unbelievable shot. I mean, and Connor, I think you jump in. How often we see these pictures formulate online, and like, I mean, my mind is still blown. Like, you Google photos of like just Batman 89, and these are iconic images that come up. Like this image here, I used it as the thumbnail. I pointed an arrow right to Carl. I'm like, this guy, there he is right there. And people are like, I cannot believe that. Like, no way. Like, that was like, not that they doubt it, but they're like, mind was blown, basically. And Connor, I think you had felt the same way.
Yeah. And this is, in my opinion, one of the most iconic poses for Keaton's Batman in this entire film. So, and the funny thing is too, Carl, I don't know how much Ryan talked to you about these really hyper real figures we collect, but the recently announced 89 Batman figure, they put him in this pose in the announcement photos. So it was so clever of them to do, and that was the first photo that everybody was jumping to, like, wow, they put him in that pose. So I want to stress, like, I'm sure but with fans, this is such an iconic moment in the film, and it's so memorable. I did have a question for you, and I know you said that people always ask about the suit, but I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of different guys that I kind of look up to. I don't know if you're familiar with Spencer Wilding. He was in the Darth Vader costume in Star Wars Rogue One. I recently met Kane Hodder, who played Jason Voorhees in 4 or 5 films. And I always find it very intriguing to ask that question about the costume, right? But when it comes to Batman, I don't know if you know, but like Val Kilmer, when he played Batman, he said he felt like a sense of like isolation when he was in the suit. And I would argue you probably wore one of the thicker suits out of all the Batman that we've seen on film. So I guess my question is, did you ever feel like isolated at all in the suit? I know you said it was kind of like a great feeling to put it on. And my other question is, I know obviously this is a very restrictive suit. Did you feel like it kind of like broke in at all as you were filming all these different scenes, or was it kind of like the same throughout? Like, man, this is quite the task to do all these pretty incredible movements in such a thick suit.
Yeah, I think Val's exactly right, Connor, there. That there is a sense of isolation in the sense that with the thickness, with the cowl, you could lose a sense of hearing a little bit there. And I know my body, excuse me, suffered quite a lot through it, because I was there for 11 weeks. I think Sean McKay was just a little bit longer than me. We were the two that worked the most on this one. But it did take a lot. My body did take a lot of punishment because of the on and off quite a lot, as the actors would know to a fair degree. But obviously the stunt movement guys do a lot more of that on and off with the costume. Yes, there was a sense of that with the thickness. I think for me, I wanted to do even more without sounding greedy. I think once I'd done these various scenes, people said, even in the wardrobe, they said, really, you should have done that scene where Batman jumps out with Vicky out the Batmobile and runs down the alleyway, because Michael did that. And I think, no disrespect to Michael, he's the best, but I think I would have done that even more athletic, because I think it was bouncing around a little bit. But it's just, I think I once I got that suit on, I just wanted to do more and more and more. And I wanted to do the sequel straight after, in a way. That's how much I loved it. I think what I found is that Tim gave me so many different variety of things. So even doing pickup shots like in the Batwing, or doing the Batarang throw, all these different things, I seem to cover everything. I was in stunt territory on the Axis Chemical rooftop run. There was things there that were very, very unique and different. So I think, yes, I will agree with Val, but for me, I just wanted more and more, because your body just, it's so keyed, you know, when you're a dancer or a performer, you just, it's like a drug, isn't it? You just can't get enough of that. You're just loving it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. And
yeah, you go.
I was going to say real quick, like closing thought. And the reason that the main reason I wanted to ask that question is hearing you say that you stayed in that low crouching pose in that deleted scene for over an hour. I'm like, man, like that. I don't think like the average person realize the amount of athleticism to pull off something like that. And obviously your background, having that incredible flexibility, I'm sure helped a lot. And I think they very much needed you, because I highly doubt Michael Keaton could have pulled that off, because that's an incredible feat on its own. And I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I found that very, very interesting.
It's very kind, Carl. Thank you. I mean, it's just, you know, I think the thing is that it's amazing what you can achieve, isn't it, really, with the human body when it's put into those situations, and as a performer, as a stunt person, it just is very much the territory, and you just embrace it and go with it. And so really, I just wanted that so badly, that opening scene with that pose, because I thought I've given so much to this, and then to have it taken away, it just seemed such a cruel blow. But then you think, well, actually, no, Carl, you did get the very opening, and then you got that lovely cape opening and jump down. We didn't really finish that, you know, with that sort of cape opening. That was nice, because with Tim, this came up in another post on social media about this, and it was great, because there's a trump card which says directing Michael Keaton, which is actually me that it should be written there, because that was me on top of the gantry preparing for that shot. And I went through with Tim about various movements with the arms. It's like this, what they call the corps de bras in ballet, the carriage of the arms. And it was lovely that we could just discuss things. And then another thing was that you did that cape opening, and then I jumped. And then I had to make sure that when I did jump, that I didn't just sort of crumple down, because the camera could have seen, oh, it started off beautifully, and then Batman's just perished. He's just crashed down there. So I followed it as you do. It's like when you're on stage and you go in the wing, you're always visible in a sense, and that's how you always taught. You never switch off your attention in theatre. But I literally had to then jump with my cape out and then land very well on crash pads, so that didn't look awful. It had to look beautiful, hopefully, all the way through.
That's an amazing story for, arguably, I think it's still one of the best opening sequences to me personally. And I just, like I said, I love that whole sequence from start to finish. And like I said, when I was going through looking at scenes, the next, I would say probably the next, and like I said, there's some pieces in the Axis Chemical sequence that I personally, and this is where you could probably correct me, I couldn't tell 100% where there are certain movements. Like I know there was movements during the Axis Chemical. Like this scene is 100% you when you're standing on top of, after Jack Nicholson falls in, and he falls into the chemicals, and this is you standing there looking, and then you do like the famous bat turn and the you swoop the cape away. There was one or two scenes that I thought were you, but I didn't want to mislead and put them in. I guess I could have confirmed with you before, but there were some scenes that it just reminded me of you, actually, where like when the guys are running through, like when you're chasing Jack Nicholson through and you're kind of stalking him, there's one scene when I noticed, like walking against the railing, you're swooshing the cape, and it's very floetic. So there's certain scenes I was like, I think that could have been him. I'm not sure, but I know confirmed that this is you on top of the Axis Chemicals doing the bat turn, so to speak. It's been coined, but this is 100% you.
Yes, those other scenes, Ryan, you're quite right. I mean, there is a sort of a similarity there. And a lot of fans and people have said, you know, was that you, Carl? And I said, well, sadly, it wasn't. I think with these things, it's weird. It comes on sort of political ground where, like I say, I could have done even more, and I could have even done more stunts to a degree. It's how this kind of landscape is that you respect one another. I was never greedy. I was so grateful to be given the scenes that I did. And I think it's just that you realize that they'll say, well, look, we'll give those to Sean, let Michael do those bits. When Dave Lee came in and did the fighting, obviously that was reshot, but then they had things for me. And I think they tried to sort of even it out as they could. But I think what made me really proud of this scene was that I mean, it looks, I'm very proud of it, but the thing is, it was a lot more than we're actually seeing, because I actually ran in from a much further distance, and it was very, very dangerous. I mean, it wasn't just on a small, low roof that we did this. I could have killed myself doing this. It was wet, it was windy, there was cables. Even just getting to this rooftop was hazardous in itself. I think I remember climbing up a very exposed staircase, and I was thinking, how the hell did I do these things? But again, when you're in the zone and you're there with an assistant director that's, asking you to go there and stuff. And once I was there, I just brought in all those elements in my toolbox to say, right, Cole, this is about self-preservation here as well. He might be just shouting on the megaphone, Peter McDonald, come right to the edge. But I need to know that when I run and stop, I will stop, I won't fall off, and I can make it very theatrical as well. So I'm really love how it's so close, and it gives that wonderful shape and theatricality like the Phantom. But it was a lot more involved in this than we're seeing.
And that goes back to what we talked about with Batman. They did a really good job. And there were some scenes I know I sent you an Instagram that you're like, nope, that's me. And it's just crazy how there's certain scenes, and even Connor, they split cut them actually surprisingly really well for a movie back done in 89, where usually there's some where you can kind of tell action sequences, we're like, well, wow, that's definitely not him. That's definitely, but I guess that's the luxury of the suit, is that if you find the right people that can pull it off, you really can't tell who's doing what. And that's kind of, pretty impressive about. And Carl and you and I talked about that. It's still kind of impressive for what they did back in 88, 89, where they were able to edit and move stuff around and give people that illusion of like, it's just one person doing a majority of stuff versus it being 4 or 5 people, which is pretty amazing to bring this character to life. And then famous scene, getting in the Batmobile. Like I was jumping in the Batmobile. I was like, this is like every kid's dream right here. Like, and for me, I know, Connor, I know you have your this is my Batmobile right here. And there's so many done. And we're going to talk about all the incarnations of Batman. But I mean, this was, like I said, the sequence of, Batman rescues Vicky Vale, the running out, she goes get in the car. And then this is what we see. And this is you getting into the vehicle itself, like hopping into it with, I don't know if that was
it was
Kim Basinger.
Cy Hollins,
that was her double.
That was Kim's double. That was,
and so what was this experience like? Now, was this your first time seeing the car, or did you see it before, or you showed up on set and said, "Hey, you're getting in the Batmobile today"? And was that your first time experiencing the vehicle?
I think this was the first time. Although I'm trying to remember the sequence now, because there's the scene I do where I step out from the side and stop. No, so this is before then, isn't it?
Yes.
Where I stop the car. But no, I think this whole experience was just incredible, because it was sort of an amazing feat in one sense to get into that Batmobile without crumpling or snagging anything, to make it seamless. That's the perfectionist in me, right, how do I do this? So I looked actually at the cockpit when I was waiting, if you like, preparing, and Tim had told me things. So I thought, right, I looked in the space, and then I sort of had my hands on the sides and worked out how I could sort of swing my legs in. It was like on a pommel horse in gymnastics. And I'd always loved Bruce Lee, how Bruce Lee could have his legs out at 90 degrees, fantastic stomach muscles, and, going up a rope or lowering himself down. But they were all things that I grew up with, and I did those things at home as well, those strength exercises. But I thought, right, so I found this way of the momentum, and with being a drummer again, it's like the independence of your limbs. So I thought, well, right, I'll swing the legs round, they'll be sort of fairly glued together, and I'll just push the cape back with my left hand so that that's out of the way. So then with the motion, it'll be just literally like I've been shoehorned into the car. And I mean, people have made me laugh because they've said, well, you got in far quicker than Cy Hollands, and she's not had any of the costume to deal with.
That is true. That's a good point. She's not even, she's got her hands just based on the car at this point. She's not even in. That's actually
we used to call that dress a J cloth, really. You know, there's this it's like a clean cloth in England, this J cloth, because it was a more simplified costume, that one. I know Bob Ringwood loved the silks that Kim wore later on in the movie, you know, but this was a more casual dress. But yeah, I just found that with thinking in my head of things that I'd seen and how I did things as well throughout my performance, that I could do these things and bring them to the fore, like I say, with whipping the legs in, using the momentum, and then using that subtle sort of pushback with the hand to get the cape out of the way, because that was obviously the main thing, wasn't it? That if I sat on the cape or snagged it, it would start to judder motion. But it goes in like a dream, really. I'm just so pleased how it went, and that again, I wanted it to be so perfect, so smooth for Batman.
And then there's the image of you after the alley fight scene, the car coming up when it was like remote, you know, when he says, you know,
yes,
the car's driving remotely, that's you stepping out into the street. And,
yes.
And then it cuts to the scene with Michael Keaton saying stop on the little radio, and the car stops.
That's right. Yes.
But it's unbelievable. But Connor, like I said, this is amazing stuff with the Batmobile. I mean, what are your thoughts about, you know, hearing what you're hearing about this and his experiences with the car? This is just something mind-blowing for a fan. I think it's just something we dream of personally.
You know, the other thing, Ryan and Connor, is that, you know, when you wear a costume, that the costume helps, of course it doesn't. And that's what Tim wanted with Michael, was that, you know, more than sort of a normal guy having this muscle suit on. But the thing wearing a suit is that, as a performer as well, that you have to make the presence within that suit, because you can look sloppy even in a Batman costume. You know, you can be round shouldered, you could be too casual, you could slump. I was always, you know, brought up with this way of, even when I'm walking or even when I go out, that I just it's about holding yourself well and projecting, and the cosplayers will hopefully know all this as well, that when you're wearing that suit, you want to be not stiff, but you want to be, you know, strong, but, you know, elegant. You know, you can bring in the power and things when you want. But I was always very conscious about being sort of lifted, and a lovely symmetry and presence that would project, you know, because that's what Batman is, isn't he? He's so multifaceted that we want him to have all these skills, these abilities.
It's amazing. But like I said, Connor, what do you think about all this, that you're just digesting this all? It's just amazing to hear.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I thought that was funny when we're looking at the scene there of you jumping in the Batmobile, and I thought Ryan's comment was funny, that you were in the Batmobile before she was, and in a more elegant manner, all things considered. So definitely kudos to you on that. But you had mentioned practical effects earlier, Carl, and my whole life I've always been a huge fan of practical effects and kind of that movie magic from many years of Hollywood. And hearing you say that, like, when I was first on the set, I was taking everything in, like, that really made me look at myself, because I'm like, that's what I would do, because
yes,
it's so fascinating to see. Now, my question is for you, do you think kind of being immersed in this kind of mini world that they created on set, do you think, let's say you film this film today, do you think it'd be a different experience and maybe kind of a bit more difficult to kind of get into that universe because of all the different CGI and kind of the age of practical effects I would arguably say it's fading for sure, because there's just so much CGI involved. Do you think it would be more difficult to kind of get into this role and become Batman, become that character, because of the surroundings being so different and being much more CGI today? Do you think that'd be different for you, a different experience?
Yeah, I think that there is definitely that. I think what is a shame is if they can't do films with a blend of both, because yeah, if you're purporting to the fact of if I did this film with what I know now and what I've experienced, would it still be filmed in the old way? Is that what you mean, Connor? Or would it be filmed in the new way and I would be
Right, exactly. So if it's filmed in the
into
new
that?
way, do you think it
Yes.
would be different for
Yes.
you, and would it affect your performance? You know, because you know, you like you said, this was like a world. Like you go on the set and you're like, wow, look at all this. This is amazing. You know.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would in a sense, although I love the way actors have adapted, and I think as performers you do adapt to the direction. So I think I would be able to cope with any of that direction, as though you're dealing with the CGI. It's just, for me, now, I think it's better if you are going to use CGI to do a blend of both, but I can't make them do that. That's the way it is. But yeah. No, I think I could certainly adapt. I think you do. I think I'm the kind of person that always has done. You know, you realise that the world has changed, and I can still admire things in other ways, and the way, like the flashes, you know, the way these later movies, what they're doing, I can still appreciate things there. But I love the blend of old school and new school, if you like. I think that's my sort of way. That we know that the Batman '89 has been such a benchmark for subsequent movies, but you know, we could still learn to do those kind of things, if you like, together. That's where I feel it should go.
And what's great about Carl having you on at this point in time is that I think I picked your brain about it a little bit. Is that towards a little bit further on, we're going to talk about the Flash and Michael Keaton's reprised role in that character and what it means for you. Not really, maybe not from the sense of Michael Keaton because the actor, but that character of Batman coming back to the screen, because what that's doing for people is it's reintroducing that character to maybe a younger generation that don't really know, like, hey, who is this? This is, you know, the older Batman. They're hearing like us that grew up with it, and then they go back and watch these movies. So it's kind of like a circle of life again. Like everyone's gonna go back and revisit. They did it with Ghostbusters, with the new one, seeing the old guys. Now they're going back. It's like, so there's this sense of the old stuff is being revitalized again, I suppose is a nice way of saying it, but that's really awesome. But another now this is a scene. I'll kind of put a couple photos together where it's a little like we're going to flip through a couple pictures. And I know it's been a little bit kind of hit or miss, but I understand this is maybe one of those that used multiple people. I think this one is Michael Keaton, if I'm not mistaken. But you did have some involvement in the scene after they're driving the Batmobile. The car pulls up and, you know, the lights get flickered on. You're actually walking through the Batcave with Vicky Vale. So it looks like it's probably a culmination of multiple people that are being in the scene, but I did want to include it nonetheless because it does go back to that point of them being able to splice in multiple characters. But I do understand you do have some involvement in this particular sequencing.
Definitely.
Like I said, the lights come on, and I'll just flip through the photos, and if you can recall, you know, where you are. But like this is one shot that I saw that may have been you also turning it on. From the backside. This is like a really rare photo because everything I found was mostly this scene, and that's Michael Keaton saying something about the bats or watch your step.
I think that's it's mostly between me and Michael. I remember when I did this scene that I get out of the car with Vicky, and then I'm sort of leading her around this like labyrinth of the Batcave, and then I go up to where computers are. So I think it's got a little bit muddled there, if you like, with that image of the lights. I think that's Michael. Yes, but certainly I was involved quite a lot in this scene. You know, going around because again, it was the movement. You know, we people would take it for granted sometimes that even just walking in the costume is. Well, it's kind of easy if you want to make it look ordinary and not very exciting or not so attractive, let's say. But you know, with Batman, like Superman, you you want to be this strong, this great presence, you know, it's elegance, you know, sophistication, everything there. So even just walking through, I think that's why they loved me to do those movements, because they knew I could give that extra element, you know, that real presence. And as I say, elegance is a word that's come into my movements an awful lot, which I love, you know, that elegance and fluidity.
And what were your thoughts? I don't know how much, it looks like a lot of it was done production, matte paintings, things. I mean, a combination of tricks that were used, but what were your kind of thoughts seeing the Batcave, walking around this environment? Because I know prior to this, I wasn't born at that time in the, you know, with Adam West, but that was really our basis of medium in terms of what like a Batcave was. It was the Batcave that was very colorful. Things were spelt out, bat computer, you know, every gizmo that was needed, there was a name for it, bat something, you know, bat spray or whatever it was. And then you have this dark, gritty, like underground look that was much more resemblant to the comic books at the time. What were your thoughts like walking around seeing all this stuff? Was it kind of a shock compared to what you were used to with the previous incarnation?
No, because just alluding back to, you know, what Connor picked up as well about my love for everything and how I was on set and observing everything. I was one of these guys as well, having grown up with the Hammer House of Dracula and Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and how brilliant that was. And I'd worked on the Bond stage before doing another job. And so the Bond was another thing I loved, with the gadgets and that ingenuity of all that they did, but also the Gothic thing. I mean, we have such a lot of Gothic architecture in the UK, and I know in Europe, I've been to Transylvania, and it's just mind blowing when you see these buildings, which, you know, form the basis for these set design as well. And so I loved all of that. But yes, I saw the Camp Kitsch or the different Batcave with the Adam West series, but I was just in a world with this because I love all this world as well. So anything that had this, you know, supernatural, Gothic, darker sense to it just really blew my mind, you know. And I did some stills, or there's a picture of me with a fan or a visitor to Pinewood. Was posted, and then I did some filming, the making of a hero around the Batcave as well. It just was something I absolutely loved. Any excuse to get on one of these sets, it was just, to me, a dream come true, because I just love that whole world. I mean, I dated a designer, and she's sadly no longer here, but she, you know, I seem to have had friendships and relationships with people in the art world, designers, costume, you know, whatever. It's a world I love. It really is all of that. You know, that's why I love the movies, because we all do. It's the magic, isn't it, of all these elements coming together. And you know, this particular Batcave was, for me, was the best. It's just amazing.
And it's so cool to see that kind of brought back, where we see elements, like I said, we'll touch base on some photos from the new Flash movie, how they're bringing all of this stuff back.
Yes.
So obviously the sequencing, kind of get into like the last part, and which I think is probably the more famous sequencing of the movie. We talked about the opening, but there is also like the end sequencing to the movie. So this is like a good example, like, you know, he's in the bat plane, it gets shot down, it's crashed, and like that one, and it's just a split second, but you're able to catch, like, nope, that's it. Like that was you initially. This shot still is you in the suit, and then it cut, because I remember I showed you the after, and you're like, nope, that was Michael. So this sequence is quite interesting, because there is a lot of mixed. Arguably, this scene, I think we talked about it, utilizes all the characters pretty much. Michael, yourself, the stunt doubles. They did a really great job of mixing and matching people. And even if, like I said, this is you from the backside, and then it cuts to Michael all cut up and walking up the steps. And then even like, and you said you can double check me, but I believe this was you opening the doors.
Yes, more than likely. I mean, this is a thing, because I did all of it. I did all of this, you know, with Tim. He asked me to do all this. So it's that thing, you just, you know, you've done it, but because it's cut so well, between Michael and myself, you're sort of like, you know, not 100% sure because it's how it's been left, isn't it?
And that's what I asked you about, even like the steps, like the scene, like you pretty much kind of confirmed that where you're like, you're almost positive, like when you're, well, the scene walking by and Batman trips down and knocks over the pew and all the pews knock over. You were like, that's definitely Michael, because you even said like they didn't have a lot in the suit. Like that was Michael Keaton that actually knocked, because I thought that was you at first. But then pretty famously, this entire sequence is confirmed to be you. And there's another sequence because you can actually tell from the screenshots that I got these like in 4K resolution, but like I did a real slow down, opening the door, the walk, and you can actually, if you could tell by the jawline, honestly, that it was you and not Michael, because Michael has a very distinctive jawline and face that you could tell. But like this whole sequence, like even right there, like that's very slight bit of light that hit your face, I could tell that that's not even Michael Keaton, like that was you. So like, what were your thought process like this whole sequence? Because this involved a lot of motion, fluidity, walking. But like I said, I'll pull it back and then you can kind of just walk us through what your whole mindset was about this.
Well, this was really quite a tricky scene to do because that trapdoor was very heavy, and I was, again, as we let the actors have the better time, because that's what they're hired for. They don't want to be stuck under a trapdoor for ages waiting to emerge. But I was there, and it was very compressed under that trapdoor, and you can imagine it's very hot. You're waiting, and then you get cued to emerge. The trapdoor is very heavy, so I was just used one arm to lever it open, and then I come through. And even just putting the trapdoor back, it has to be very elegant. You wouldn't drop it, but you could look awkward even just putting it back. So very, very conscious of making that very fluid, very smooth. And then in my head, it was that I knew about the fact of the goons, the henchmen, that I was pursuing the Joker, got Vicky. I needed to be very aware, highly alert to whatever may sort of present itself, you know, because someone could literally enter from any direction. So I was very much conscious of being in the zone, you know, being highly alert, but making it very fluid again because of the costume, moving elegantly well all around, and I just loved that whole scene. I really did.
And there's one screenshot I grabbed, which is like, and Connor, like I said, I don't think you've seen this, or I might have, but there's one screenshot that's pretty much perfect. And there you are.
Yes.
And that is a perfect screenshot.
And that's the picture I've got at the back as well.
There you go. That is the perfect shot of you standing there and the goon falling, you know, down. Yes. But like, there you are. And if that's not much more of a time stamp, there you go. That's it. So it's a great looking picture too.
Thank you. No, that's the one that influenced Dennis Baptiste, who did this double tribute. But yeah, that's so that was really interesting because I'd done quite a lot of the movement here, and then when I do the famous sort of turn when Lawrence has crashed, if you like. They wanted to do the fighting, but the thing was that, and this is another thing, how skills vary, that the martial arts couldn't do that same walk as I could. You know, that because I went off, I'd done quite a lot, and then I went off and say they concentrated more there. But then they called me back and said, no, you better carry on. So it just shows you how, even with stunt people, that they can't necessarily do those things like you can. They have different skill sets, and you admire that for what they do. But I think what made me really proud, because, you know, I'd had a lot of disappointment prior to Batman. I'd been getting close to a lot of big jobs, and then I also had the same thing after. But, you know, this film gave me so much. It made me so proud of the fact that I could use all these experiences that I have, and how I feel about the world and everything else. It just allowed me to show, well, look, this was the film that could broadcast to the world that, you know, Carl Newman, he does have his own body language, his own movement language, and that's what people have said, which I'm really touched by. Said that you've created a movement language for Batman, which was missing in Returns. And when I watched Returns again recently, it's a great movie. You know, I really wish, and it was just a huge disappointment that something happened. I should have been there, but something happened, and I didn't make it. But to say I'd like to be known for that body language, that movement language.
Connor, what's going through your mind right now when you see like this film? I kind of like, we see this movie that we love so much, and we're dissecting these scenes, and you're seeing that, like, I don't know, will you ever, for me, I'm sorry, whenever I watch 89 Batman again, it has a different take on it now. Talking to Carl, seeing his experiences on this movie, and like something like this, like I see this scene this picture so many times, like there he is right there. It's kind of unable to hide that, so to speak. I mean, as a fan of yourself, a fan of this whole thing, I mean, what are your thoughts about this and seeing the man himself in the role that we're speaking to?
Yeah, I number one, I think it's incredible. But the thing that came to mind, especially with this photo, the crazy thing about everyone who's performed as Batman is when you think about Batman, he's got that cowl on, right? And it's so funny to me as I'm sitting here thinking about it, like how often you kind of focus in on his mouth and his jawline, and you often forget just that alone is a performance in itself. And I remember Robert Pattinson, who recently played Batman, he was talking about it was more difficult for him to play Batman in the suit than it was to be Bruce Wayne, because there's just so much to it. Like you said, Carl, like the movements, the elegance that you brought to this character is often, I think, overlooked. And again, it's the movements. We're seeing your jawline here again. It brings me back to seeing 89 Batman for the first time. Everybody always laughs about like Michael Keaton doing that famous smile and stuff, but seeing your lips kind of perked up here, that's very much so much part of the character. And I guess my question for you is, how difficult was it to kind of bring the whole package together, the movement of your body, the facial expressions, everything? Like, what was that like for you? And when did you kind of get it? You're like, okay, this is the direction I want to take with the character. I got all the movements right. This looks good to me. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, just to bring it back, I've always had this love for the Hollywood movies, and I've always been, I've loved the women, the glamorous women, but I've always admired the handsome guys, and I've been influenced like that. And I think with me, I was very much into being an actor as well, even more than a dancer later on. I've always loved that. And I think whilst it's this juxtaposition really, where Tim said he didn't want the square-jawed sort of guy for this, but then I've got that, and I mean, even when I did shots, if you see the shot of me with Herb Ritts, I've got a very distinct chin and jaw, which I think you do want in probably the comic books. It doesn't, I mean, Michael's got a great face anyway, and his eyes, and he's such a brilliant actor. But I think for me, it was like, the universe was saying, well, Carl, because you've done some modeling, and because you've taken care of yourself, and you love all that world, and you love sport and the athletics and the dancing, the Batman is just the perfect vehicle. It's the perfect film to have. So I think for me, because I've loved the photographers, I mean, to get to work with Herb Ritts, he was someone I greatly admired, like Bruce Weber and all the brilliant Hollywood photographers. Some of the ones in England have been amazing as well. It just had everything. So I think really what it did was that, if you like, my interest in the physical culture and fashion and all different things, it just rolled itself into this character of Batman. I mean, when people have said, well, you're more the Neil Adams Batman, and people have been doing drawings, I'm just blown away, because when I first did Batman, I was obviously so blown away by it all. And then you kind of move on, don't you? Move on to your next project. You don't forget it, but you're in that next moment, whatever it might be. And so really this interest again has just, it really has touched me so much with all the fans, and you know, having these opportunities with you both, with the interviews, it's just given me chance to really speak more, because I honestly believe a lot of my involvement was not just overshadowed. I think it was just taken away from me, because when Returns came out, you know, obviously, you know, that went on to Dave Lee an awful lot, which quite rightly so. But I think a lot of what I did was to say, trampled over. I'd see photographs or things of me, and it didn't have my name on. And even now, my images are going around, and it's still saying Michael Keaton or whatever, which is probably very flattering. But it's just nice to be given a chance to have an appreciation and a chance to talk about it. I'm not going to ever blow my trumpet too much, but you know, just to have an appreciation that, you know, when people say, like you both said, when people say to me, "You are the reason I got into drawing," a guy, Austin Grayson, who did a picture of me recently, said, "You are the reason I got into drawing." I mean, how, you know, I'm just like overwhelmed by that. It's just so incredible. You know, so really, this is lovely. I'm getting a chance to say, look, I did these things. It's me, and because I loved photography so much, you know, I love having my photo out there, because I love all that whole world. You know, to work with a photographer like Herb Ritts, or to have these stills and see them, it's like, wow, you know, it's just something I've longed to do. I've been longing to do all this kind of stuff for ages, and it's allowed that to sort of happen.
It's an unbelievable experience, Carl. And like I said, I really, once again, just to bring it back home a minute, we do appreciate you taking the time out to do this, because, you know, the Batman groups and stuff like that on Facebook, the community, I mean, everyone's in love with, you're such a gracious person, such a gentleman to talk to. I mean, we conversed a couple times back on there, and I have to admit, I was very intimidated, saying, "Hey, would you want to talk?" And you're like, "Yeah, absolutely." You know, if you saw that I had the passion for it and was interested in asking questions, and my curiosity about everything, and you without even a blink of an eye, I could tell you were like, "Yeah, absolutely, we'll talk." So, I mean, you're just so well opening to talking, and like I said, I watched other interviews and stuff. You did that with other YouTubers, and everyone's just sharing the content, because, you know, it's just an amazing. You're amazing. It's just an amazing experience. It's one whose story, you know, it should be out there for many people. And like Connor and myself, we're very much tied into various pop culture communities and things like that. And so we got some people watching now, but I assure you, like, when we put this stuff back out on our channels later and share it, I mean, it's just a multitude, just being able to see everything that's going on. It's just an amazing experience. And once again, we really do appreciate your time. And I have there's two more sequences that I confirmed. So we have this sequence here, falls through, and then you stalking the Joker.
Yes.
When Vicky Vale is kind of distracting him and she's kissing him up the sleeve, and that's you walking. And I had to freeze frame it like 3 times to get the perfect still, but she looks back and that's you walking past.
That's me walking past.
And
that,
that's an amazing,
yes.
yeah. No, you
Sorry.
continue.
No, that was amazing, because you know, I'd always loved Jack as an actor. He's just the most phenomenal person and actor, isn't he? I loved all his movies, and to have this opportunity with someone like him, who was very gracious and supportive. And I remember seeing a still where he's taking a drink with Michael, and there was things like that I did with him as well, where we would just break and have drinks, and it's just that sort of time, isn't it? If someone captures those images of you together, but see, Michael was more important, and that would happen. But he was so good with me. He loved all that, and I remember how I really got into that feeling where he was, and how I sort of crept round, and he really remarked on all of that. I think he, you know, was saying to Tim how interesting that was, you know, and how it made it. And when you get that from someone like Jack, it just blows your mind. So having that time with him, it's just fantastic. So it was a lovely thing to do.
I was going to ask you that, because I know, doing some research on Batman, I mean, Jack Nicholson, He was a big name. I know there was a lot of people that were talked about for the Joker, Robin Williams amongst names, other people for that character, and Jack Nicholson was definitely obviously the top of the list, and he was a big name at that time. He did The Shining, other movies like that. So, and I know he was billed actually above Michael Keaton, so it was him then Michael Keaton, so he was the big name, so to speak. And I know that he had I was watching a documentary recently a couple of days ago about how he had a very strict, like he wanted to be on set for X amount of days per week. He had a lot of restrictions and stuff like that. But on the flip side, and you're speaking to it, I'm sure he seemed like an absolute pleasure to deal with on set. Like and he seemed like such a fantastic person and just a character in general. And you're just speaking to that. But I mean, how much time did you get to interact with Jack Nicholson? Was it like one or two times, like it's like 2 days worth of work or something like what was your interaction time with him?
It was a fair bit because I'd gone to a party one time. Let's say it was Bob Ringwood's party, and it coincided with Independence Day, and that was wonderful. And I'd said to his dresser, about wanting to talk with him. I always wanted to do it the right way, don't overstep the mark, and so there's lots of different things. And he had this amazing, as we know, this sense of humor, and saying things to the back suit wranglers partner, and he just had that real sort of dry, cheeky way. And so I spent quite a bit of time around him, interacting with him, and I would watch scenes that he did. So it was a fair bit. I think Michael even more, obviously. There was a variety of opportunities, a party, a gathering, and then, between filming different things. I remember he'd just done the photo session with Herb Ritz, and then I went in after him. And so there was all these kind of crossovers and things that we did. So it was a fair bit of time. And Kim was a bit more later on. I got to know, I think initially she wasn't quite sure what I was doing. But then later on, when she knew, when we were doing things, we had a wonderful sort of rapport together, and that was fabulous.
And then finally, and Connor, I kind of want to rope you in this so we can kind of tie it up, Connor, because this is an image that gets circulated online. We use it in, memes or photos and things like that. And I was talking to another YouTuber who actually put this photo up. It was in we have a group chat, and someone put this photo up as like a little meme. I was like, oh, that's the character. That's the person that we're talking to, as a matter of fact, and it was one of our friends. And it's this scene, this photo here, that is very famous, used a lot of times. And like I said, you Google Batman, it's a very iconic photo. And once again, you, in a nice storybook way, you open the movie and you close the movie in a way. So it's a nice kind of opening. So like this image of Batman is you as the final image. So it's a nice way to wrap up a fantastic movie, so to speak, that you're the first thing that we see and you're the last thing that we see. But I mean, it's just an iconic photo. It's an amazing photo. You standing there with the cape draping. Obviously, you're probably, there's a little bit of a compositing to put this scene together. But I mean, what were your thoughts going on, thinking that you're filming this scene, which is going to be the last scene in the movie, probably your last. I mean, I don't know in terms of sequencing if this was actually the last thing that you shot, but I mean, this scene going together, and then you seeing this on the big screen. Like, what are your thoughts about that when you saw this?
Well, I was just absolutely electrified. And it was one of the earliest shots, would you believe?
Wow.
Because we realised, don't we, how it's not sequential with the filming. But I think what I really loved again was that boyhood thing of like, wow, this is a superhero, and you get to be standing on this sort of platform, and then there's this huge industrial turbine that's blowing, and you've seen kind of similar things in the movies before, but then you're there in full regalia. It's just you, and I just couldn't believe it, and to see it on the big screen. Even now, I just still can't quite take it all in. there's been conjecture about this. People don't want to believe it's me, and that the ears are shorter. There's always some kind of negative. But I can honestly say I would never, allude to anything if it wasn't 100%. But I know I did this with Tim. He asked me, he wanted me to do this. And we rigged it all up. I was there. And it just felt amazing, because with the cape flowing back as well, you can imagine how I felt. I just felt in another dimension, really. It was just staggering to get that opportunity. So yes, to get the opening and the end line is just amazing.
Connor, what are your thoughts kind of seeing, like I said, I gather together my concrete evidence of scenes that were Carl in the movie. So kind of seeing the movie from start to finish. As a fan, I know I have my thoughts, obviously, that Carl has heard enough times, but what are your thoughts as a fan seeing the scenes now from start to finish that Carl was in, and kind of where's your head at in processing all this stuff? It's pretty amazing, I gotta say.
So I want to start by saying, like, Carl, you have an incredible and a respectable amount of humbleness to you, because to us as fans, the work that you've done here is monumental. It really is. And when I'm listening to you talk, I had the opportunity about a year or so ago. I don't know if you're familiar with John Morton. He was actually in some scenes. He played Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back. And hearing you say, well, it's like Keaton overshadows the work that you've done sometimes, and like there's photos of you and Michael Keaton's names on it. When I spoke with John Morton, some of the things you're saying are very much reminding me of him, because obviously Jeremy Bulloch is who a lot of us know as Boba Fett. He was our Boba Fett. But when speaking with John Morton, that really helped me gain a new appreciation of the tremendous amount of work that you do. So I very much respect and admire your humbleness, because I think the work that you did in this film was groundbreaking. And I would very much say that you inspired a lot of actors moving forward with the stuff that you did. So I just want to say that on record. And to me, you are as much Batman as Michael Keaton is, because especially hearing about all of your experience and things like that, it just shows you what goes into a role like this. Like you said, multiple people, it's you, stunt doubles, Michael Keaton, like all of you collectively are Batman. And to me, you are the quintessential Batman. You're my childhood. So I just wanted to show that appreciation to you while we had you on here, because this is such an incredible opportunity to me. And I find myself smiling ear to ear every time I hear you talk about this stuff, because you're just so excited all these years later to talk about it and share it with us. So this is very special to me. So I just wanted to say that to you while we had you on here.
That's really kind, Connor. I'm so touched by that. I really am. That means such a lot to me. I mean, I've always believed if I can help anyone else, if I can influence anyone, I always talk to young people or any people, just to say, look, never say never, just do it. Just if you've got a dream or you want to do something, just go for it. I mean, I was a country boy, I still am a country boy at heart. I love the city as well, but it just proves that I came from a very small village in Leicestershire, and I got to London. I was never scared of being in London. It's such an amazing city, the opportunities there. And I'm desperate to get to America. I really am. I've not seen it yet. But, just do it. And if I can, as I say, to help others, to encourage that, to influence anyone, means so much to me. It really does.
Carl, I want to go through a couple things. We have probably maybe a few more minutes to wrap. I know we didn't have like a set time of how long this was go. I think we're at like an hour and 20 minutes. So maybe like another 15, 20 minutes if that's okay sure. With everybody.
It's absolutely fine.
Because I have some, I compiled, you touched base on a couple things throughout. And what I want to show next is, stuff that we can kind of talk about, because I want the people who are watching live and also on the replay, you touch base on a couple things, and your experience with Batman stems not only through the movie, but you yourself touch base. You threw out a couple names, and I want to go through some stuff. And like I said, Connor, might be some stuff that you have not seen. So it's nice to see kind of another opinion on it, another take. Because like I said, I've been in 89 mode for a month now, where I've been watching nothing but doing research. But one of the things you touched on was you did, and I called it all. That's why when you said it, I was like, oh, you also helped the Joker goons kind of do the miming, the walking. Like you kind of assisted in how they were to move. And I took some screenshots of some. This is another famous sequence of them doing the move. It was a little, I remember when I was a kid watching this, it was like a little creepy to me watching this a little bit. Like, well, like what is these characters just kind of coming out of nowhere, not understanding it, you know, when I was younger. I saw the movie when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So I was like, what is this? But you were on set assisting these actors in doing these movements, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was hoping we'd get to this part as well, because I was asked to take them into a mirrored studio, and I did some training in this mirrored studio as well. They got very good facilities there. But I remember taking the guys in, great bunch of guys, and you know, ordinarily they wouldn't know. They might have seen some things in the past or whatever from Marcel, whatever. But I remember seeing Marcel live, and I did also have an amazing mime teacher that came into where I trained. He was in Paris for some time. I'd also subliminally remembered some of these things through Jeffrey Daniels in Shalimar, who did the sort of the body popping and robotics and things. And these are all things as a dancer and a performer, again, that you digest and absorb. And so I wanted to make it look so over the top with these movements. So I said to maybe one of them, well, look, you do the rope, you know, pulling the rope, or you do against the sort of the wall or the window. And we just ran through all these different things. Consequently, they all had their own little moments and little routines to do, if you like. And it was another fantastic opportunity to be allowed to do that. This is the thing, isn't it, with a performer? You've got it there, and if you've got a director like Tim that allows you to portray and, if you like, let things flourish and flow out of you, then it's the best thing in the world, isn't it? Whereas some directors maybe can crush that or monopolize that. But Tim, just the most incredible person and director, allowed me to flourish and gave me these opportunities, which I'm so grateful.
Like I said, an absolutely fantastic sequence, and that you kind of had sprinkled your touch on, so to speak. So that was great. Now, this is something that's really important, which is the Herb Ritz. So for those who don't know, and like I said, I'll post information in the description where I found Herb Ritz is a very well famous known photographer is an understatement, most likely. So he did a lot of all of the photography for Batman when the actors came in, all the photo shoots and stuff. So what I'm going to do is go through a string of photos, and then there's a reason why. So he photographed these famous portraits, and like Connor, like even if you don't know who he was before, we've seen these photos. These are very famous, and there's much more, by the way. There was probably over 100 photos. I had to just pick a few, but these are very iconic photos. If you Google Batman 89, these are the photos that are coming up. And once again, I just want to give credit to Herb Ritz. He's not with us anymore. I believe he passed away some years ago. But these are fantastic. These are iconic photos that were done. And he did Batman. These are just beautiful. And like I said, the ones with even like Jack Nicholson, I mean, I'll put the links in there. You guys got to look at like this whole entire out. He did every character. You got to look at these photos. They're unbelievable to look at. And these are just as a photographer myself, I love them. And he did not do, from what I understand, he did not do Batman Returns, but he came back to do Batman Forever. So he did the entire cast of Batman Forever. And once again, these are shots that are very iconic that we see. And he also did Batman and Robin. He photographed everybody. So everybody had their hands. So needless to say, these are very iconic photos. I know, Connor, we've used these. I remember using this photo for a couple of our live streams. Like I've used these before on stuff, not knowing what these were. And there's a reason why I bring this up to everybody is because, Carl, you had your photos taken by him, and you're credited as being the only Either you want to call it
Double.
stunt double, movement double. You're the only non-actor to be credited to
Yes.
have your photos taken by him, which is unbelievable. This is
I mean,
unbelievable.
this was a dream for me because, as I said earlier, that I've always loved. I mean, I love photography myself, and I've always loved a lot of these photographers over the years. I've been to many exhibitions all around the world, and what was really quite incredible was that I went to Herb's exhibition. It's called the Hamilton's Gallery in London, and it was just phenomenal, really. The variety and people that he shot, the imagination that he had in his photography. And so I'd seen this exhibition, and then the next thing is I'm there with him, and he was again such a gracious, such a lovely, beautiful man. His assistant and I got on so well. He invited me over to the States. He done very well in his own way, but Herb, of course, did great direction on the pop videos, with Michael and Janet Jackson and Madonna. He was just so lovely to work with. He likened me to a young Mandy Patinkin from The Princess Bride. And he loved the fact that I came up with poses like the prayer pose beforehand. I mean, we know, some, that's a bit Adam West. Well, I don't think it is really. I mean, I think that has a different kind of energy going through it. And I think Herb just loved my ideas, and together we came up with some great shots. It was just a shame that I only got a couple of the shots from the actual session, but I'm grateful to have those because in my mind, this is one of the greatest photographers ever.
Yeah, I mean, his work is, like I said, I can only pick, for the sake of the stream, I can only pick a couple photos, but you go back and look at these photo albums. I mean, he did like everything. And like I said, there's so many more iconic photos that if you do a Google search, you're most likely looking at his photos without realizing that they're his. It's just because there's such an unbelievable amount. And this is a photo I found too of you. These are just kind of some photos to show. This is just like other work that you've done for the movie, publicity work, so to speak. But this is William Todd Jones, who was also the movement consultant that I've found of you and him together as well. Which is pretty amazing. And I'm just flipping through, and this is the same movement consultant. This is with Michael Keaton. So just to kind of put things together, this is Michael Keaton in the suit with his black eye makeup.
Well, the other thing as well, Ryan, was that we all became like a family. So I would go in with Todd. I could have been the sort of I'll be taken in by the driver, but I just was quite happy to go in with Todd. Went in on the tube sometimes. I was just so laid back, and we were all good friends. I don't see Todd so much because he's in Wales, but I've conversed with Vin. She's a wonderful lady, such a talented lady, and we've all remained very good friends. And I think that's another key thing, that we've never had any bad energy or any sort of niggles with us. We've all just got on so beautifully together and big friends, and always help one another. And that's, in my mind, is a wonderful thing in life, isn't it? If you carry that 100%. Forward.
And these are just additional photos. Yeah, these are just additional photos I found. Anton First, who was a production designer, and this is you outside of the museum. And then other photos, Bob Ringwood, who was the costume designer. Like I said, these are photos I found online that, just giving people some perspective of that your work of Batman didn't just stem from being on the movie, that you did a lot of other things and your photos, as you were saying, your stuff is being used in magazines and publicity at the time. Like, this is you as well. This is a photo that was taken of you, and I'm just clipping at, and like you can see, these are magazine articles and stuff at the time, and there you are, you're in there, just to kind of give the people watching context. All this stuff is also on your Instagram. You publish this stuff. And like I said, I'll have the links to all this in the descriptions if people were interested, but I just wanted to grab some photos and things. But once again, these are just articles coming out, and there you are again in the same pose. So pretty popular with the wings spanned out, but it's a pretty popular pose. And there's another little zoom in there of you as well. So this is just to give people some context of some other media that I found online. And now kind of to wrap, and and there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So on your Instagram, your Instagram handle, which I'll put all that in the description, is Ballet Bat. And so real quick, that nickname was given to you by Jack Nicholson.
Jack, yes, that's right, because he called it Ballet as well. And then Michael also cottoned on to that, and he put me Ballet Bat on there, which I thought was so lovely of him as well. And so yeah, that all stemmed from Jack. I mean, what better could you wish for someone like that? And Kim, she was so lovely in what she'd written. I think we both felt that we'd be on another one together. Hopefully, that was the feeling, because of they'd spent so much money on the Gotham set at Pinewood. We felt that sequels can turn around quite quickly, can't they? And so we both felt that we'd get another chance. So to be, but
and then Connor might like this actually. You to my understanding, there's a story that you actually met Prince also.
Yes,
Prince,
that's right.
The soundtrack to Batman is just that's another conversation for another time. We can talk about that soundtrack another time. I mean, I know Connor, you have that soundtrack on vinyl, so I believe it's an unbelievable soundtrack. But it's just Prince is a whole other character.
Yeah, we used Prince at college. Would you believe? Tracks like Crazy, you know, were great for dance numbers, you know, in jazz modern, you know. So we remember those moments very, very well. But it was surreal, because I'd come into one of the other stages where the Batwing was housed, and it was on these hydraulics, and I couldn't believe it that he was there, and I was very, very close to him. In fact, I'd waited for him. He'd come in close. He was walking around and coming a bit closer, and then I just wanted to have conversation with him. Who wouldn't? But it wasn't the atypical, you know, kind of questions that I wanted to say to him how amazing the set was, and how influential it was. But he just didn't seem to want to really converse, so I respected that. And I just thought, what a shame, because I would like to have said to him, can I be in your back dance video or something? That would have been amazing. But he's lovely. He's so sadly missed, isn't he? Huge talent, the multi-instrumentalist, brilliant producer, writer, singer, everything. So that experience in itself was wonderful, and it would have been nice, but you take it on the chin, don't you? You just didn't want to speak. But he paid me the highest compliment. He put me that bell tower picture in his CD booklet, which was very nice.
Oh, that's amazing.
I say that anyway. It was probably someone else that did that. But it sounds good.
Yeah, Connor, I know you're a huge Prince fan, and the soundtrack was it's very influential as well. But yeah, it's one of those movies, right? That everything just seemed to work. Soundtrack, everything like that. It's just a movie that clicked, so to speak, for a superhero movie that was just back in the time.
Yeah, and for me, there's not a lot of films that really encompass it all. And this photo of Prince always makes me happy. And hearing Carl talk about it, it's funny, because you know you have that experience sometimes. Like, there's someone that you want to meet so bad. I've met celebrities before, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I expected, but it was still great to meet him. You know, I remember a friend of mine. I was with him when he was meeting Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, and he was very short. My friend was asking a bunch of questions, and I'm like, wow, I did not expect that at all. But you know, that's how it is sometimes. But
it is.
Yeah, you know, you have such an appreciation for some of these guys and girls, and you just kind of take it for what it is. I'm sure that's still such an amazing memory. And like you said, we lost Prince way too soon. So I'm sure that interaction with him is still something you hold very near and dear. And like we said, like, this was such an incredible soundtrack, and there's not many soundtracks that you go back and look at and you're like, this is such a quintessential movie soundtrack. For me, it's 89 Batman, it's RoboCop, the first RoboCop film, the first Ghostbusters film. Like, those are soundtracks to me that were just so good that I can often find myself going back and listening to them like normal music. You know, like some film music you listen to and you're like, that's only good in context of when you're watching the film, but it's not the case for me with 89 Batman. It's such a fantastic soundtrack, and that's such a cool story that I wouldn't have known about otherwise if I weren't here, that you got to meet Prince. I'm very jealous. So that's awesome.
He was definitely the right man for the job, wasn't he? Because there was talk about Michael Jackson wasn't there at one time doing the music,
Wow.
and Michael's brilliant in his way, but I think Prince, it was him to a T, wasn't it? This soundtrack, no one else could have done it as good as him, I don't think. No way.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
His style definitely lended it very well to the stylistic interpretation that we got from Tim Burton. So I think it was a great choice. And I think Michael Jackson, and I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan too, I think that would have been the wrong choice for this one.
Yes,
so.
me too.
Yeah.
I would agree with that as well, but that's an interesting take. Just put like I said, just putting up some credits that, you know, credit there, movement double, and all the stunts that were done. I wanted to put together, so this is a quick story, like I said, just kind of slowly kind of wrapping things up. I wanted to explain to people, and Connor, I hope you agree with me about this. I hope you agree with what I'll say. How I actually found Carl is on my Instagram page, and once again, all these people will be credited, and I talked to all these individuals ahead of time saying, hey, is it okay if I, you know, kind of plug you on there? So this Instagram page came up, REEVZFX. It looks like he's an artist based out of California, and he does a lot of suits and costumes, production, things like that. And it honestly was one of those that just popped up on my Instagram feed, and obviously you see the first pictures that are 89 Batman, so I'm hooked. So I followed him, and I'm going through, and I don't know specifically, he and I didn't have a full conversation. I don't know if he has an original movie suit, or it looked like he was he was recreating an original movie suit. Like his goal was to get the most original version of the 89 Batman. There's a bunch of, like, Connor, if you look at his page, there's tons of posts of him doing test fittings, different. It's quite amazing, the passion that this gentleman has for this. As I was going through his page, I stumbled upon this photo, and this is where I found Carl. And basically, and it's kind of a little bit of a story, like phone tag. So, you know, this photo gets put up, and I'm like, all right, this is interesting. What I mean, I'm looking like a Wayne Manor kind of setup, and I'm like, I love the photo just in general. It captivated me, and you know, and the caption says, "Pictures worth 1,000 words." But for those who know me, how much of an 89 movie and how much, you know, it's been basically a passion. And then it gets to like the middle part where he says, this is the man you see picture, the great Carl Newman. And there's your tag, Michael Keaton's movement double. You know, he spent more time in the suit than anyone, including Keaton, when you watch things going on and on. And I was just like, whoa. And I'm like reading all this stuff. And then this shot was a teaser image taken by Shane at HICKS Photography. And it looks like this suit, which was not complete, I believe, it looks like it was borrowed for this photo shoot. And actually I was talking to, and then obviously you play the click game. I click on Shane's page, and this is the photographer. And actually I was speaking to him yesterday. He had nothing but kind words, and he jokingly said he hopes to get a little bit of plug, because I believe you and him spoke like a day or two ago. And
yes,
I was talking to Shane. His photography, and Connor, you can see there's a little he does a little bit of hot toy photography there, but Shane does, his work alone is just, as a photographer, mind-blowing to look at. But he did a photo shoot with you, and I believe there's more planned and things like that, but there's these photos that I had asked his permission if I could use them, and you guys did a little bit of a photo shoot where you were taking even like the NECA Batarang, and then this is you wearing the cowl that was made by REEVZFX Studios.
Yes.
Like I guess, let you borrow that cowl. And I know these are a little bit older. These are not recent, because you guys actually shared a photo on Instagram yesterday, like of another photo that I don't have, because this presentation I did a few weeks back. But Connor, I don't know about you, and I made this comment to Carl. I was like, if you don't look like a great, like a veteran Batman, like I know, like, man, he looks really good in that cowl right now. Like as an older, like he got to suit back up one more time for one more ride. I was like, man, I like the stubbles. Like that's why I like Ben Affleck, because he played like a very good, like kind of a veteran Batman. But Carl, I gotta say, man, you're winning me over right now, that you could you could suit back up one more time for one more ride. And man, this photo's got me, man. I don't know about you, Connor, man. This photo, like I was like, oh, man.
These photos are very special to me, seeing them now, because there's a photo shoot that Jeremy. So Carl, I don't know if you could tell, I got Star Wars stuff around me, but I'm also a massive Star Wars fan.
Star Wars is amazing.
Yeah, and Jeremy Bullock, I don't know if you've ever seen the photos. He did a similar photo shoot. He had all the Boba Fett armor on, but he had the helmet off so you could see his face. And these photos are very like full circle moments to me. And I think you look great with the cowl off. And I agree with Ryan. There's so many Batman fans that would love to see like an older, like hardened Bruce Wayne. And seeing these photos here for the first time, because I didn't fully go through Ryan's slides because I wanted to be a little surprised. You look incredible, dude, and this is such a treat to see these. And again, it's almost a bit emotional to me because again, those photos of Jeremy Bullock are so special to me, and seeing you here, I'm like, it's a very full circle moment for your portrayal of Batman. This is super cool to see, and I agree with Ryan. If you ever got the opportunity to see this through, how amazing would that be? You know.
Well, you never know, do you? I mean, that would be sort of so close to my heart if I could get some more opportunities, because again, it's meeting and talking with people and helping people and inspiring people. That's what it's all about. And Shane and I have become very good friends, and it wasn't really so long ago when we did these that we had this in mind, and this test suit arrived on my doorstep, if you like, and it's just missing the cape, that was all, and the boots, but we had the cowl and the bodysuit, so that was fantastic. And then I suggested that we went to a church that was very close to my heart. I used to sing in the choir, and both my daughters were christened there, and it was in the village that I was born in. So it had a lot of significance for me, and Shane did a fantastic job. He was a very talented photographer.
There's another photo. I put it up on my Instagram and kind of shared it, that there was another unreleased photo that was done of you. Like I said, again, chance to put in, but it was like, and that's when I had a conversation with you. I was like, man, like I wish you could suit back up. And it was just, these are photos that are unbelievable. Like they're very captivating from a photography standpoint. You know, who we're talking to, the backstory behind it, it's quite speechless. I'm trying not to fanboy over it, but it's just an unbelievable thing. Like, just it covers so many bases for me personally, and it really does hit home, like Connor was saying, when you see these people. Like, and I think what people are going to grasp of, and we're not like, you know, taking away from like, oh man, Michael Keaton, like he was never even Batman. That's it's more than that. You know, that's the whole point, is that it's more of it's a character. Like, yes, he's the face of it because of who he was, but it took a lot of people to really bring this character to life. And that kind of segues. I have like two more questions, and then we can, like I said, wrap up. And if you don't mind, Carl, for a few minutes, there's actually been people watching a live chat of this, and there's actually a couple questions that people do want to ask. So I can just kind of throw them out to kind of throw some recognition to those that are watching. But like, and this is before and after. I did a little side by side of you then in the photo shoot versus what it is now. It's just, like I said, it's just unbelievable. I did this little side by side comparison so you could see like a before, like, you know.
I mean, it's very Herbert-esque, isn't it, Ryan? You know,
yes, it's
very Herbert-esque, that photo that Shane's done there.
Yeah. So, like I said, two questions. So there's been multiple incarnations of Batman. This one just makes me smile because it just looks at all these. You know, it starts with, there was technically two. I didn't want to add them, but there is two technically black and white. They called them serials at the time, I think in the 40s, where they were really the first two live action versions of Batman. But I kind of started it where everyone kind of knows, which is, you know, Adam West, who was a legend in his own right. Moving on to Keaton / your incarnation, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, and now the most recent, which is Robert Pattinson. Now, not to dive too much into it. I mean, this is just an example of, you know, how Batman or Spider-Man, it's a character, you know, it is an actor that plays it. But I think personally, if the character is so strong, anybody could technically play it. And if they do a great job, it's Batman. Like, when we look at this, we just see Batman. You know, we don't really see initially, oh, that's Ben Affleck, or we all have our favorites, of course. But in your opinion, for someone who donned the suit, who is in the movie, I mean, I almost want to ask, do you have a particular favorite, or what are your thoughts about the actors themselves who have portrayed this role since then? Because like I said, they all have their own version. They brought their own thing to the table. Some are less favorable than others, but all respected in their own right. But kind of, what are your thoughts about, like, have you seen all these actors in movies, or and what are your thoughts?
Yes, I have.
This photo?
I mean, I think Val was very, very good. I think we all know, don't we, that it's the material, isn't it? It's the direction that you have as well. But I think Val very, very talented. George, I'm not so sure about. I think he's a great actor in other areas. I've always enjoyed his movies, but and then yeah, I've enjoyed the others. And getting on to Robert, I think he's made a very sort of up to date Batman in that sense, and we're all intrigued as well as the Flash to see the Batman 2, aren't we? I think it's so difficult because they're all different. They have their own style. I think Val, for me, certainly had an awful lot there. I think it's serious sometimes you're given the direction. Certainly very different with Robert, with the Bruce Wayne character as well. Totally different. It's they're all good in their own way. I think that's the way I'll sort of play it. I mean, do you have a favourite? Do you find that you lend a bit more to one than the others? You know, Ben, you probably alluded to earlier.
For me, Michael Keaton's still my favorite.
He's still the favorite. Yes.
I'm still saying Michael Keaton. You know what? I'm saying Michael Keaton / Carl is my favorite. Because you, so I'm going to say Michael Keaton / you are my favorite Batman.
Michael.
And like you said, honestly, second to that, I grew up a lot with Val Kilmer in the 90s. Like it was very campy now as an adult looking back on it. But honestly, when you're a kid, it's like you have a difference of opinion on it. I love Ben Affleck because I think he really portrayed, I would say Mike Keaton, then Ben Affleck, because Ben Affleck, I think, portrayed that gritty kind of, you know, he's been through some battles, kind of disgruntled, got a suit back up kind of Batman personally. So those are my two favorites. I know Connor, I think I know who yours is, right? Who's your favorite?
Well, I mean, my number one is certainly it's certainly going to be the '89 Batman portrayal. That's always going to be my favorite. But I am a big Christian Bale fan as well, and I know, you know, I'm Carl. I'm sure you've seen all the jokes with Christian Bale and the voice that he put on and everything. But
yes,
it was very interesting to hear your thoughts about Val Kilmer, because, you know, it's unfortunate. I think Val Kilmer also did a great job, but you know, with the scripts that they were given from Joel Schumacher, a lot of people, you know, have had some harsh opinions about those films. And even we know, like, Michael Keaton didn't end up reprising the role after Returns because of the discrepancies with Joel Schumacher's scripts. But I agree with you. I think Val Kilmer did a great job. I think he was a pretty good Bruce Wayne too. I liked his portrayal as Bruce Wayne, but for me, it's always going to be number one, 89. But certainly I do very much enjoy Christian Bale. And I agree with you with Robert Pattinson as well. I think he had a very unique kind of gritty take on Bruce Wayne. It was very different. And I did like to see a bit more detective stuff that we got to see with Robert Pattinson's version of Batman.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. And I'm like you, it's like, I'm super excited to see Keaton come back. And I'm also really intrigued to see what now happens with Pattinson's version in the second film, because obviously that first film with Pattinson was very much setting up this character, and he was all focused on vengeance, and then he realizes, like, that's not the path that I should be on. So what's going to happen now, you know? So I very much agree with a lot of your thoughts there. But yeah, like Ryan said, you and Michael are always going to be number one for me. I know Ryan knows I really love Bale, but there is such a nostalgia factor to the '89 Batman film that I'll never lose it. You know, I'll never lose it.
Well, there's a couple comments in the live chat, which, Carl, I didn't forget. You said something like an hour ago, which I was like, I still mind blown. Is that it's like James Bond. It's like, it's hard to pick who's your favorite James Bond. Like for me, Sean Connery. But I also grew up with Timothy Dalton going into Pierce Brosnan. I loved, like, Timothy Dalton. Like, I was born in '87, so Living Daylights came out the year I was born. I do love that gritty Timothy Dalton. I know we're segue off, but I have to ask the question. That's something you said you did work on a James Bond movie, or you were involved.
Oh no, I worked on the in the stage, if you like. No, I'd love
the stage that's shared with.
Yes,
okay,
shared. Yeah, the Bond stage.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute, that's another live stream movie to James Bond. That's like a whole other, but to kind of like wrap up, like this is just more of like open conversation, even for like Connor, myself, you, Carl. So these are the last photos. It's just they're stills from the Flash trailer. So obviously the big thing is Michael Keaton is reprising the role from, you know, Batman '89/92. He is the older kind of, veteran he's suiting back up, and we see him here. We're just going through some slides, and like you're touching base, like the heavy use of CGI, it is apparent, it's unfortunate because we're seeing a character that, it was mostly all practical. Now it's given the CGI treatment, which it's kind of like it's the inevitable thing that we can't control. Like this is just kind of what it is. But when you kind of like, I'm assuming you're going to go see the movie. Like I'm going to go see it when it comes out. I'm very excited. Initially, what are your thoughts like when you see like the trailer and you see these images? And as I said, even like Michael Keaton, like I know I've watched interviews with him where he was obviously excited to come back. And I was watching an interview recently where he was very emotional when he put the suit back on and he was in the Batcave and he was like, "Can you take some photos for my grandchildren to see me?" So he was obviously very emotional. But for you obviously, like I said, you were a foundation, an architect, if you will, who brought the character that we're going to see of Batman. You brought it to life. You helped bring it to life. So what are your thoughts, like seeing like a version of what you like, a version that you helped build, like seeing it back on the screen again? Maybe not necessarily Michael Keaton. I mean, that's obviously great to see him, but what's your thoughts when you saw these trailers come out and you're like, oh man, that's reminiscent of what I was, what you were doing in a way. Like, what was running through your head?
Well, I'm like everybody else, and I will just reiterate that Michael is obviously my favorite Batman. I'm not just saying that, but I've always thought he's just the most phenomenal actor. But no, I'm like everybody else. I'm just so excited, but emotional as well at the same time, because it will transport me back. There's images there that you've shown, Ryan, that have that background for me, those flying, that silhouette that is there. But I'm super excited. I am going with a couple of connected friends, let's say, that are huge fans and are involved in that world. And we're going to do other things as well. We're going to be doing the Bruce Wayne Manor locations as well and things like that. So we're going to have a package, if you like, with the Flash. But yes, I'm just super excited. What I've seen so far has just been fantastic. Michael's presence when he says those words, I'm Batman. Let's get nuts. Yes, it's iconic, isn't it? He's just fantastic, and he's a lovely guy. I can say that from the bottom of my heart. I've always had a great experience with him. And I just can't wait to see it in its entirety, rather than the little trailers, which have been great teasers. But I can't wait to see the whole movie.
Yeah, they're doing fan service, to say the least, especially the last trailer. They were heavy. I mean, I think they understand, which I have no problem with. They did it with the latest Ghostbusters, where they focus really heavy on the reason why we're going to. I'm going to see it because of Michael Keaton. I'll say it flat out. That's the reason why I'm going to see him.
Definitely.
This is actually the final. This is the final image, which is we'll leave it there because it kind of harps me back to the image of you standing in front of the signal. But Connor, what are your thoughts about this? Seeing kind of this whole thing full circle, seeing Keaton come back, knowing the story you heard from Carl, like as a Batman fan, I mean, I don't think there's a better time, to be honest with you, for us and to be in at this moment. What are your kind of wrapped up thoughts about this whole thing?
Yeah, it's almost very surreal to me, because this goes back to, I remember when it was rumored that Keaton was coming back, and everybody's like, oh, how do you think he's going to come back? What do you think he's going to be like? Blah, 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 So it's just so incredible to see that it's finally about to happen. And it's also really cool to see your excitement, Carl, to see this film and kind of like Ryan said, relive a role that you helped bring to life, and it's coming back all these years later. And it's, even for someone as young as I am, it's still very surreal to me to see Michael Keaton reprising the role and to see many of our favorite versions of Batman coming back on the big screen again. It's like this year is so special to me. I mean, Return of the Jedi is back on the big screen a couple of weeks ago. So it's like, it's just crazy. It's incredible. And I hope you have a great time, because it sounds like you got much cooler stuff planned than I do. But this is incredible. This is incredible. It really
just shows you the power, kind of, doesn't it? With this movie. And my wish was obviously that I was there with Michael and contributing in some way. You can't help that feeling, can you, when you've been a part of it? But people have said, "Are you in the Flash? Are you?" no, that I would have loved to have been there, but
Yeah.
I just cannot wait to see it. I really cannot.
So to wrap up, I got a couple questions. People have been kind of chiming in on this, and I think some of these you probably answered, but there's someone in the group that are watching on my YouTube channel, Marley, and is asking Carl, would you jump back into the suit officially if given the opportunity? I think we got that
Yeah,
answer.
yes, yes,
Yeah, I think
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. Well, with having tried the test suit on, it felt really so good. That's
Yeah.
given.
And then another guy in the chat, some guy who is a fan of my of Connor's and myself. He's a good member of us that we talk to a lot. He asked, Carl, do you still practice dance? And what is your fondest memory of the film itself, if you had to choose one?
I still do my own practice. Yes, I have my own kind of exercise routines and things that I do anyway to keep limber and in shape. But my favorite moment, that's a really tough one.
That's actually
Is
a question.
Is that just yeah?
A couple of people have been asking, like, basically from what you filmed in Batman. Like,
Oh,
what
my,
you
so
filmed,
my favorite.
What was your favorite scene in '89 Batman?
My favorite scene, yes, that I was involved in. I think it's got to be the opening shot. I think really, I think they've all had some incredible memory and influence on me. But I think the opening shot, I think where you do see him is got to be the one, because that was so theatrical in that sense, wasn't it? It had a multifaceted sense to it. You know, it was ghostly, quiet but strong, and knowing. That's what I would say. Definitely, it is difficult, though.
It's still an iconic scene. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we just hit the 2-hour mark. I was a little concerned we wouldn't have a lot to talk about, but I think we filled 2 solid hours of good conversation. I was worried about that because I was worried about putting stuff together. Yeah, I was worried about putting stuff together. I'm like, are we got enough to talk about? I'm not really sure, but I think we could have talked for more hours. I know that.
Sure.
I know, but I think 2 hours is, and like I said, with the time zone difference, I'm really appreciating you gracing us with your times. I would really like to maybe have a follow-up conversation, maybe after you see the Flash movie, and maybe we could do, like, honestly, Connor, if you're down for it, Carl, I wouldn't be opposed to doing like a spoiler-free, like a spoiler Flash review. Honestly, I mean, how cool would that be, Connor? Having a Flash review with the man who was in Batman '89. I mean, that's kind of a dream come true. Like, Carl, you can give us your thoughts about the movie, like everything about it, like maybe some things like your mindset. So I'm open for that, Carl. If you ever are, maybe let the movie come out, let it digest, and maybe we could do like a spoiler review, or we just do a review of the movie and we just sit here kind of talk about it. You know, that's something, Connor, if you're open to it,
sure,
we can do that. That's a
I'll have
cool
a lot
idea.
to talk about, Ryan, I'm sure, because this particular weekend that we're planning, it's really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So I would love to. I would. That's something that not to put you on the spot, of course, but that's something, because it's this all timed out very perfectly that the Flash is coming out next month, and it's kind of Batmania, and I think that it's honestly going to step up within the next month or two. When people see this, they're going to get revigorated with Michael Keaton, and it's going to kind of come full circle. So it would be really cool to get your thoughts on the movie, and like I said, maybe we'll follow up. Like I said, we'll work out our availabilities. It's more on you than us, but when you're free, we maybe do a follow up, like a conversation about the movie and kind of what your thoughts are that come in full circle. That'd be amazing. But Carl, like I said, we could wrap. Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely gonna stay in touch with you, because you're a fantastic gentleman to talk to. What I will do, like I said, this is streaming live on my channel. When the conclusion of the stream is ended, I will go back in a little bit later and edit the description. I'll put Carl's Instagram page in there. You have a Facebook group also, Ballet Bat. You have a Facebook group that you have members coming into, that all content is shared. So definitely I'll put that in there. Please, people, check out Carl Newman on Instagram, on Facebook, the descriptions. I'll even post everything on Facebook, Instagram, make sure everyone knows. Connor will help me with that as well. So I had a fantastic time. I tried not to fanboy out as much as I think I did, but it's hard to put it into words. Carl, you were a gentleman, even just typing messages and being able to talk to you the first time. You're incredibly reserved. You're just, in terms of, very humble is probably the best word. And everyone that I've spoken to, numerous people have just said you've been absolute pleasure, a gentleman. I mean, you live up to everything everyone's saying. You're a fantastic person to talk to, and you're willing just to talk, which I love your story. It's mind blowing. It changes the way I see 89 Batman, and not in a negative way. It's just an appreciation for that movie and the work that you did on it, and the impact that you had on it. And I think, the impact that you've had on people directly and indirectly. Because I said, I talked to other YouTubers and people that did not realize. And then when I showed them photos, are like mind blown. It's just a nice way of saying it. And those are my thoughts.
I'd say a huge thank you, Ryan, to you and to Connor for giving me this opportunity and being so wonderful and allowing me to have this conversation with you and spreading the word and hopefully inspiring many, many others. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do. It's been a wonderful experience for me to talk to you both.
And this, it's actually, I'm going to plug it, as today's Connor's birthday. So this is like a nice little,
oh, wow.
So it's
his birthday.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Very happy
birthday. Batman wished you happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no one else could say that, huh?
And it's a great month as well, because both my mother and daughter were born in May as well. So
yeah, my grandmother, Ryan's wife, her birthday is today.
Today's my wife's birthday too.
It's a great month.
but yeah,
very happy birthday.
Thank you. And I just want to say, if it was any other type of stream, I would have said no, but this is like a birthday gift to me. Truly, I'll cherish this. This is very special. And once again, I just want to just show the appreciation to you, because I think, and I agree with Ryan, this kind of really took me back, and hearing your story and hearing kind of where you came from to where you are now. It's very inspiring to me. I don't ever see my large 6'2" self doing any ballet, but just what I take from it is just like, keep at it if there's something that you're into. And that's very inspiring to me, because I'm kind of in that phase of my life where I want to try new things. I turned 28 today. I think I'm old, but I have to keep reminding myself that I'm not. But really,
not.
This was an absolute treasure, and if we get the opportunity to go back on with you, I'd love to be there, because again,
definitely,
out of all the famous people that I've had the opportunity to talk to, you have been such a gentleman, such a kind person, and so humble, and I just respect that so much. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you for doing such an amazing job on this. All the work you've put in, all the shots and things. It's been lovely for me to see it like that. I really appreciate all the hard work.
No, absolutely. It was fun. It was fun diving in and looking at everything, and just, you watch these movies over and over again, and then you kind of it reinvigorates your passion for it. And so I had so much fun researching and doing stuff like that. So that being said, we're definitely going to hook. We're definitely going to hook up again. We're going to get another.
Of course we are, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we want to talk to Flash, and I can't see a better way. I don't do spoiler, nor does Connor. We don't do spoiler streams or about movies, but I think we could break that from our normal content that we make. And like I said, talk to Flash with the man who's been in Batman. So it's like, that's an opportunity that is just to pick your brain and your mindset about it. It's just, that's an unbelievable experience. So, Carl, like I said, if you're ever open to it, like I know you're saying you are, we're going to make this happen again, making it happen again.
Well, I promise you, Ryan, we'll make it happen.
Absolutely.
It's my word always.
Thank you so much. So for those who are in the live stream watching, thank you so much for appreciating. I know we have people trickling in at the last minute because, like I said, the time zone differences. This will be on the replay on my channel. So if you're watching it, if you are watching the replay at this point, I'll have all the descriptions, the links, all that information to Carl, to Connor, myself, and all of the backup media that I use, the YouTube links, all that stuff. So if you guys want to delve into all this, there's so much more information out there we couldn't cover. Like I said, guys, I really appreciate everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Carl, thank you so much. Connor, I know I'm going to talk to you soon, guys. Thank you so much,
guys.
Guys.
Take care. Good care of yourselves, won't you? Thank you so much.
Take care, Carl. Have a good one. Thank you so much
Connor,
for being here.
Enjoy the rest of your birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. That made my whole birthday. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care. Cheers, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.